You are watching the Omaha Bar Association's 10th annual End of the Year CLE, sponsored by the Omaha Bar Association Lawyer Referral Service. The Omaha Bar Lawyer Referral Service has been around for over 60 years and is the state's only staffed lawyer referral service. For more information, please go to omahalawyerreferral.com or you can contact Donna Birkby at 402-280-3603. This CLE has been approved for 2 hours of general credit in Nebraska and Iowa. To receive credit, please contact Dave Summers at dave@omahabarassociation.com.
So I'll get started and we'll get rolling. Thanks everybody for doing this over Zoom. I know you want to be in person, but we're gonna do it on demand and via Zoom this year. We'll be back in person next year because our CLE credits go back to having 5 in person next year and 5 on demand. So for this year, you can get all your credits online, but next year we're going to do this in person. And GNGF, Get Noticed, Get Found, they've been a partner with the Omaha Bar Association for a bunch of years. You've seen them at our end of the year CLE, seen them, we did some Zoom CLEs during the pandemic. And then the State Bar Association has had GNGF to their annual meeting. So if you've been down to La Vista Conference Center for the annual meeting in October, you've seen Mark down there on occasion. So they're a known quantity to us. We've worked with them, and Get Noticed, Get Found likes to bring the business side of being a lawyer into what we talk about. And I have to say, here in the Omaha Bar Association, I see great lawyers, but I see some questions about the business side. And so I wanted to bring in 2 topics that I think are really poignant on that side. And so we brought in Jamie Kohls, who's with GNGF to talk to us for 2 hours. It's been approved for Nebraska and Iowa CLE credit. And for those who are on today, I will go and report this to Nebraska by the end of the day, so you'll see it. Iowa's self-reporting, of course. And any questions, I will certainly send out Jamie's information to everybody afterwards, as well as a link to GNGF for an opportunity to get their book, which I have my copy. You guys always send me the latest copy of the 5th edition. I don't know if that's the latest and greatest, but
that's the latest right now. We're working on another one, so
and I read it every single time, and it always there's new stuff every time, and it is as somebody who was a solo practitioner for a bunch of years and whose wife's at a mid-sized firm in town, there's just so much to pull out of this. So it's a great resource, and y'all offer it to those who are on here, and I appreciate that. So I've talked too much, Jamie. Nobody's here to hear me talk, so I'm going to turn over to you. We're going to take a break about an hour in for a few minutes, let people reset, and then we'll restart, and we'll be done around 3:35 altogether. But I'll turn it over to you. I've given you co-host abilities, and
perfect.
Any PowerPoint stuff that you want to do, it should work. Fingers crossed.
Can you see it?
Yeah. Yep.
Perfect. All right. So the first half of today, we're going to be talking about creating a client from a lead. So before I do that, I have a little bit of intro stuff that I want to cover. Oh, there we go. And like he said, my name is Jamie Kohls. I am the marketing and partnership manager of GNGF. One thing about GNGF is that when I started here, I worked at big law firms, small law firms. I graduated from Chase College of Law. So they had not had any attorneys actually working for them at that point. And me coming from like the younger side, like just coming out of law school, was like, what are you doing for the people who aren't ready to hire a big agency to do all their marketing for them? And so we actually went in and created the Legal Marketing Academy, which is a community for attorneys to learn the business side of running a law firm. So I'm really going to be talking a lot about that, like business side, and kind of that mindset shift of law firm owners are business owners. So that's going to be a main focus today. A little bit about me. I did play at the very first Division I team at Northern Kentucky University. They actually made a NCAA appearance the first year that they could, so that was pretty awesome. That's my dog Dino. He was my secretary during the pandemic. I started with GNGF during the pandemic, so he was my coworker. And then that's just my law school graduation. So as Dave said, we do have are offering our complimentary book to everyone who is here today. If you visit for.gnGF.com/Omaha Bar, all the resources that we talk about today, including the book, will be there, and also including a couple different free sessions from the Legal Marketing Academy if you're really interested in that business side of running a law firm. So I wanted to start kind of with like a cheeky question, but when we look at this, what is it, right? We've seen these 100 times. It's a business card, right? But it's for a law firm. So why would they call something for a law firm a business card if what you're running is not a business? So that's kind of where we're going to start thinking. Like everything we do, we need to, just like we do business cards, and just like accountants do business cards, and just like dentists have business cards, they're all businesses. We're all running businesses. We need to start doing other things in our business like other businesses would. And that's like a huge mindset shift. We work with attorneys every single day here at GNGF, and we, especially when it comes to like creating content on the website, we run into this thing where attorneys are so good at knowing the law. They're so good at, they learned in law school how to learn. They've learned in law school different like practices and areas of law, and they're very smart and they know it. What they don't realize when they go and start their own law firm is that's not the only thing they're doing on a daily basis anymore. And law school really doesn't teach, in most instances, how to run a law firm and how to engage in practice management. So we really work hard to educate and instill that sense of business acuity to these attorneys, because it's so important. And you can't just know everything about the law and have a successful practice. There's so much more that goes into it. As I talked a little bit about the Legal Marketing Academy, but we kind of display this level of education and of business first mindset across all of our platforms, including your law firm is a business, take it to the next level, which is kind of on the nose. But it's ran with Melanie Leonard. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her, but she's the founder and CEO of Streamline Legal, who her sole focus is to teach attorneys how to use CRM and common business practices to run their firm on a daily basis. She really is like the intake queen. So a lot of what we've learned from her is in this presentation. So I just wanted to give her a little bit of a shout out there. But when we're doing this mindset shift, people always get scared. They're like, I already have so many cases. Like if I get better at running a business, I'm just gonna like drown even more. But that's not what we're talking about. So there's so many things that you can do to improve on your business practices that you actually open yourself up for more time and to have more cases come in your door, but you're not spending your time doing the things you don't like anymore. It's just kind of reallocating your efforts, and so that you have a better profit on the end. But not everyone's like goal is not to have an increased profit, right? There's other business goals that are valid, and we can kind of tailor our business efforts to achieve those types of growth goals. Some of those things that come to my mind, and actually I've had attorneys come up and talk to me personally about how they listened to some of the advice that we had given them in the past, and they were able to take their week that they were working 7 days a week, 7 hours a day, 8 hours a day, and they were able to cut it down to 4 because they figured out the way to be efficient with their time because of adopting these business practices. But things like hiring, things like getting more clients, things like getting better clients, really honing in on qualification of different types of clients. Does this client make sense for my practice? It's a huge, it's like, seems like such a simple concept, but it makes a huge difference. And then better work-life balance, as I had discussed before. So another thing we want to be sure about when we're kind of already formulating this mindset shift is that not only are we shifting our minds from being a lawyer to a business owner, we're also being super cognizant of our client's perspective when interacting with us, right? And it's not just when they walk in the door. We're not just being polite when they walk in the door. It's everything from, what does our website say? Is our website designed for showing off how smart I am about the elements of negligence? Or is it designed because Jimmy just fell down some stairs and he's hurt and he's drowning in medical bills and he needs someone to help him? And this piece on your website now says, like, here's how we can help you. Don't worry. Like, you're not going to drown in medical debt for long. Like, that's the kind of information that should be living on your website, because that's what your clients want to see. That's the worry that your clients have. So there's like other parts of your business that you should be considering your clients. I would argue that almost every part of your business you should be considering your clients, but specifically I've named a couple here. So does your business make it easy for your clients to obtain legal services? Is it hard for them to walk into the door? Are you updating your clients on statuses regularly? Like, not just when you get the money at the end, not just when you need them their information for a negotiation. Are you updating them regularly? Is it easy for clients to pay you? Do clients know what to bring to your initial consultations? Do you provide more than one way for your clients to contact you? Is your site written for clients or to prove you know the law? And always ask, in every part of your business, what would my clients think? Because if you can't convince a client that you're the right fit for them, then you're not going to have a successful firm, period. So I don't know how familiar you guys are with Clio, but they're a pretty big player in the legal tech industry. And they always come out with the Clio legal trends reports, which are fantastic. I highly recommend taking a look at those. I'm going to bring those up a couple times in here because they're just so relevant. And they just came out with another report in October. But in the 2021, they came out with this report, which reiterated that communication preferences in 2018 from clients are all over the board, right? So they said clients matter. Not only do clients matter, the ways they interact and communicate with attorneys and firms also matter. So they've actually pinned it down to like exact percentages on what do they prefer. And the data is astounding that it's all over the place. Like, not one clear winner. Some check multiple boxes because they find email appropriate for certain instances, find phone calls appropriate for certain instances, which makes sense, right? We're in a industry, I think, where emergencies happen. So like a phone call is probably going to have a more urgency behind it, and emails are going to be more like, okay, it doesn't have to be answered right away. So they do prefer it to have multiple ways to communicate. And that's not just during the representation, that's also before hiring. They want to be able to have those options. And another way you can kind of start to understand your client's perspective is that, like everyone else, they expect video conferencing now, right? So people are having to adapt to the clients. And the clients are going to drive business practices and law firms and every other industry. And this is one way we've seen that happen rapidly. And I don't think it's going to go back to how it was before. But again, a way clients' perspectives are always influencing your business practices. So the law firm processes that benefit the most from this mindset shift of the law firm is a business, right? Is hiring, advertising, outsourcing, accounting, administration, branding, customer experience, sales, and then ultimately intake. And that's what we're going to talk to a lot today. But you can see, like, Wow, you're thinking, that's everything. And you're the experts on legal, right? So you know that client perspectives influence your legal practice, but also they're influencing all of this. And also, if the fact that these are business practices that every business has to take into consideration means I should be running my law firm like a business. So, like I said, one of the key areas that this mindset shift is so important is the intake process, right? And what is the intake process? It sounds like such a simple answer, right? But it's actually the process of converting those contacts, those people that reach out to you, into clients. It's one of the most important processes in law firms because without clients, obviously, you can't have a law firm. And it's the final stage of your marketing efforts. If you don't have a good intake process, you might as well not spend money on marketing. And that's coming from a marketing firm, right? Like it's just not worth it. You can't have all these dollars in something when you're not actually converting them to clients because it doesn't make sense. So this is so important. And as you can see, there's so much that goes into marketing, right? There's lead magnets. For if you don't know what that is, we actually have a great free course available at that 4.gngf.com/omahabar link. But all these things like lead magnets, emails, retargeting, display ads, they're all going to feed into your intake process. So these people are going to either fill out a form on your website, they're going to call you. And by the way, people don't even have to come to your website to do those things anymore, right? They can just click right from Google Business Profile, right from the search engine, and contact you. So they might never see any of the information you put on your website, so you have to appear everywhere. But they're going to do all these things, and they're going to end up at your firm in some way. Their information is going to end up at your firm, and it's up to you to do something with that to convert them into clients. So some of the intake considerations that I think should be top of mind at this point is you want to make sure you're acquiring and nurturing those leads. And by nurturing, I mean engaging with the people who have voluntarily given you your contact information, right? So a lead is not always someone who is reaching out and saying, I want you to represent me. It's sometimes someone that says, wow, you really do have a lot of great information on your website. If I ever came across the need for an attorney, I might consider hiring you, and they indicate that by filling out a form that says, that's leading to a document on your website or something that says like, best ways to avoid car accidents. And you provided that information that is great for them, even though they don't need an attorney. But when they get into a car accident, now they're thinking of you. And you also have their information to kind of start showing them your brand, showing them who you are, and nurturing those leads and like giving them a sense of, yes, we are here for you whenever you do need us is awesome. And then you also want to make sure you're getting their contact information immediately. Prioritize contact information over anything else. Even if they don't need an attorney yet, they might later. And you can use that contact information to, like I said, build that brand awareness, get your name out there. And then once they do contact you, begin qualifying that client, right? If they're coming to you with a specific legal issue, start asking them questions that would indicate whether or not they might be a good fit as a client for you. And it's okay if the answer is no. We have to get comfortable with our practice and with what works in our firm to say, we're not actually going to be profitable on a case like this. And that's a hard thing to like kind of admit to yourself, because some cases are just like checks every box but that profit. And that's not a good case for us. But your friend down the street, that might be a great case for them. They might just have a different setup. It might be a great case for them. So referrals are definitely going to come into play, but we have to be okay saying no to certain cases. And then make sure the potential client has time to speak with you, right? You don't want to be interrupting their day by asking them all these qualifying questions and all these like hard questions if they're not really like in a space to talk about their legal issues. I highly recommend like scheduling a time with them when you do talk to them for a call back when they would have more time to discuss these issues in a more suitable manner. And then also formulate well thought out questions, right? This shouldn't be something like you just call with no thought process behind. You should have almost a script of what are the things I need to know to decide whether or not I can represent this person. And the person who's handling your intake, which we'll talk about that later, is going to know specifically based on those questions whether or not they should send it even further down the intake funnel. And then another mindset shift that I forgot to mention is, along with being a business owner, this is gonna sting a little, you're also a salesperson. And all business owners are, whether or not they like it, is a different story. But you have to ask for the sale, right? And by sale, for attorneys, that really just means getting them in the door. Ask for, if your consultation's free, ask them to sign up for a consultation, and then ask for, bring the contract to the consultation and have them sign and be committed as a client. Or if it's not free, ask them to pay the fee for the consultation and put that on a calendar, because it's a lot easier. It's a lot harder to get them to agree to the fee at first, but once they pay for the fee, it's a lot easier to ask for the contract during the initial consult. You kind of skip a hurdle a little bit in that way. And then always, always, always improve your intake. So even when you think you've got it nailed down and it's amazing and it's great, you could always improve. And we'll learn how to like identify areas for improvement. So one key point I wanted to mention right before I move on to the next section is acting fast in the intake process is very important. Once you find that someone has a need, is a qualified or a hot lead, and our sales team likes to refer to things as like a hot lead, meaning it has, not only is it interested in our firm, it is also somebody who has a need that would be related to a service that we offer. So if we identified somebody like that, we need to act fast. We need to call them. We need to set up that intake call, and we need to try to get them on the calendar as quickly as possible. So what are the benefits of having a measurable intake process? There's a lot of benefits. And what I mean by measurable intake process, it means I'm not just doing intake and then doing the improvements that I think are great, right? I'm doing the improvements that the data that I've collected says I should be doing. So basically, if we're using different CRMs, and that's like our entire next presentation, the second half of today will be all about CRMs, so I don't want to go into too much. But if we're using CRMs and we're putting all our intake and our lead information into these CRMs, it's going to give us data regarding what is our most valuable marketing efforts, what's generating the most leads, what leads are converting to clients the most. And those things are going to give us like light bulbs in our head that are going to tell us these things are working. This is where we should put our money in the future, because every single person who has come from this Facebook ad literally converts that day. You know, like that's a great effort. But maybe we shouldn't be spending a ton of information on blogs, you know, or a ton of time on blogs. That just doesn't make sense. It's not converting. It's not doing a lot for us. And so those are the kind of tactical decisions you're going to start making based on the data. And then you can also start to monitor your revenue sources. You will start to identify different waves of how things come in, and not only how they come in, but what they're converting to. So like if you have multiple different practice areas, the different types of like Facebook or website or I guess social media in general, sometimes it just depends on what your kind of mix is, but you could also have billboards, and you'll start to ask those questions to your potential clients, and how did you find us, you know? And you'll start to realize that certain areas of law kind of resonate better with certain types of marketing practices, and then you'll be able to, again, make those tactical decisions. And then you'll identify opportunities for practice growth, right? Like I talked about before, sometimes we want to grow to hire, you know? Oh, I've had an increase in revenue by X, Y, and Z because of our marketing practices. I can hire somebody to come in and help with intake, or I can hire another attorney and I can do some of the admin myself, depending on what you want to do. And then you can also, in the opposite, identify some errors that have happened. Like, oh, we're spending so much money and so much time calling back leads that aren't really converting. So why is that happening? You know, is that an opportunity for outsourcing? Is that an opportunity to hire in-house and kind of take, maybe one person is doing too much of that and we need to spread out the wealth, you know? So again, like, you're making these tactical decisions for the future of your firm. So, but what should be measured? There's a lot of things in intake that you can measure. And I'm going to go over a couple of these more in depth, but you can track your leads. You can track qualifying versus non-qualifying. You can track conversion rates, which means your leads to appointments. It can mean appointment no-shows, and it can mean appointments to conversions. So those are all different measurements that I don't think always get the consideration that they deserve. Leads to conversion is kind of a large leap. There's other things in there that can influence, and we want to make sure we know what those are. So, and also kind of like a check on our employees, or even a check on ourselves if we're the ones doing it. Who followed up? How many times did they follow up? Is it our fault that we're not converting leads? You know? And then who is a referral and who is a new client? Those are important, just industry relationship wise. As I said before, you have all these things that are feeding into that intake process, and it's important to understand where your client started so that you can understand where to spend your efforts. So if you're tracking your leads, if you're asking them when they walk in the door, one of your intake questions are, how did you find us? Now, don't be careful. There's a thing called last click attribution, right? And click is kind of deceiving, but basically it means that just because they say that they found you on Google does not mean that they also didn't read 10 emails before they came to you. It does not also mean that they didn't see your ads on social media. It doesn't mean that they didn't read the reviews. It doesn't mean that they didn't talk to their friends about you, you know? So be careful that just because that was the last place that they visited and ultimately decided to hire or contact you, that they didn't also have all of these efforts influencing their decision. So you can kind of ask it in a way like, did you see us anywhere else? Or where did you hear about us? And then what ultimately made you decide to choose us? And then, as I spoke before, qualifying and versus non-qualifying leads is so important, right? Because you may have gained a ton of leads. Like, we do so many events. I speak not only at bar associations, but at like conferences and stuff. And we cast a wide net, right? We say, hey, here's what we have to offer. But that's not always the people who need us, right? So you have to kind of sift through and be comfortable saying no. And also be comfortable with who you are and what you know works with your firm. So if you have the data and you've stored a lot of notes and information and finances, especially in CRM where it's easily accessible, you can go back and say, wow, this client, ideal client, right? He wasn't a very difficult client. He was super profitable. He made a huge sum of money for our firm even after all expenses were done. And a lot of times this comes up with like medical bills, like what is the offset, you know? So who is that ideal client? Define them, write them down. Even if you've not had any clients in your firm before and you're just starting out, write down who you think this like superstar gift from the heavens client would be, and describe them. Say who their employer is, say how much money they make, do they have a family, what ages are they, give every demographic you can possibly give. And it's going to seem silly, I know it will, but that is your ideal client, and that's who 100% of the time you're going to say yes to. Then sit down and identify the clients who maybe aren't as profitable or as easy to work with, but they make sense for your firm, and identify who those are. And those might be the like yellow light clients, right? So they'll probably go through the intake process, but the attorney will ultimately have the final decision. The attorney ultimately has the final decision in all cases, but this one might take more consideration based on the resources available, the caseloads of each of the attorneys in the firm. So these clients won't be signed automatically. But now we at least know where our qualifications land, and start building your questions for your intake process around those types of ideal clients. And then we also want to track our referrals. This is, I thought this picture was so funny. I don't know why. When do you ever see that happen in the legal field? I just think that's hilarious. But I think that tracking referrals is an important concept to bring up, because it can be referrals from your industry people. So Joe's a family law attorney, I'm a personal injury attorney. Is Joe sending me clients because that obviously doesn't make sense for his firm, so I'm going to get those? Or referrals can actually mean email referrals or social media referrals, right? Like other industry people who are kind of saying, hey, I promote this guy. He's a great attorney. He's just not what I do. So if you like him, you should reach out to him. And like you're kind of co-marketing in a way. So those referrals are something to be considered, especially, and you can kind of vet those through the intake process. Say like, oh, did you talk to any, like, I see you know X, Y, and Z. It's an easy search. Social media is so readily available. Like, oh, you're friends with my friend from law school. Is that how you found us? It's an easy thing to do, and you can kind of build those relationships that are actually professional relationships that are actually benefiting you. We do it all the time here at GNGF. And then where are we hosting all this information? Because it seems like we have to ask a lot of questions, right? Like, am I just supposed to remember all of it? Like, I represent 40 people. That doesn't make sense. No. So it can be as simple as starting a Google Sheet. It can be. It really, really can. There's templates out there. You can purchase one-offs and then you build it out yourself. And for someone who maybe is just starting out, that's honestly a really good spot to start. You probably don't have a lot of money to spend on big CRM platforms, and that's okay. Everyone starts somewhere. That's okay to start with. Just know that you're going to have to do some digging and really get organized right away. Or if you're a little bit more established and you're starting to think about outsourcing and you're starting to think about long-term longevity, there's things like CRM practices like Clio, Lawmatics, Lead Docket, CasePeer, and those are all legal specific. So, and there's ones that aren't legal specific that you can still use because we're businesses, right? So we can use anything another business uses. But these do have, I will say, these do have a little bit of a leg up in terms of they understand the rules of professional conduct. They understand the ins and outs of a law firm and what makes that different than running a normal business. So there is a benefit to using a legal specific CRM, and I can kind of go into more detail later, but here's where we're going to host all that information that we asked during intake. But who's doing this, right? Should it be the attorney? Maybe, right? It could be. The attorney is so busy. Okay. And if you're a solo practitioner and you don't have any employees, there's a good chance you're going to have some hands in the intake process. But if you have employees, and even if you're a solo practitioner and you don't have employees, there's ways to have other people and other systems help you so you're not spending all your time doing intake. So maybe if you're an attorney and you like doing attorney things and not so many business practice things, we should consider some of the other options of who should be handling intake on a daily basis. So some of the intake considerations, or one thing you can do is hire, right? That seems like such an easy answer, but it's really not. They're going to be doing a lot, and you have to direct them in a lot of ways. So they should be understanding the firm's brand and mission, because if that person is responsible for every client that walks in the door, they're going to have interactions with everyone who walks in the door. You want them to be a reflection of your brand and who you are. That's number one. And then also, they have to be able to qualify those clients. So we're talking about those questions that we're generating based on our ideal client. They're going to be the ones delivering that information to you after they ask those questions to the client. They're also going to be doing things that are pretty obvious, like clearing voicemails, making sure those people get answers in a timely manner. They're going to have, so the one thing if hiring is going to have some trouble with is they're probably going to work 9 to 5, right? Most people who are intake specialists, even at like larger firms, are probably going to work 9 to 5 or maybe slightly extended hours. They're not going to be a 24/7 answering service, but they do know your brand. They're very familiar with you. They're very inherent to the business. So there's a cost benefit analysis kind of going in there. And they're also going to have a level of sympathy, right? Attorneys work with very sensitive areas on a daily basis. And me working in law firms, I have two nurses in my family. There can be a level of sympathy fatigue. So kind of bringing in this fresh intake specialist who hasn't seen and heard horrible things for 3 years or however long it was, is kind of nice. And I think it's comforting to incoming clients when they come with like a really, because it's a once in a lifetime thing for them usually, right? It's not a once in a lifetime thing for the attorney. And so having a level of sympathy is important. And then things that also affect our rules of professional conduct are something to be considered, right? Levels of confidentiality. What are our rules of professional conduct say about hiring somebody for intake, and what level of confidentiality do they need to have? Being able to frequently ask questions without providing legal advice. Stuff like that. You want to save the legal advice for the attorneys, even when that person is a hired specialist. And then they'll also be setting up appointments and setting expectations for the entire representation. Also, you want to educate your entire staff on intake, regardless of if you hire in-house or not. Everyone should know what the questions that are frequently asked during the intake process and what those answers are, because you all need to be on the same page. Sorry, my Kentucky came out. I'm from Kentucky, and I said y'all. I noticed it. I tried to not. But if you want to be on the same page, not only for the rules of professional conduct, but because that's an identification of your brand. But we don't have to hire. That's not the only option that's out there. We can outsource intake in a lot of different ways, really. And it kind of gives us some other types of benefits, right? We don't have to pay a salary. And so on Google Business Profile, if you actually have somebody answering the phones 24/7, you can list your business as 24/7. So that's huge. And if I'm somebody who maybe experienced domestic violence late at night, I'm going to want to call right away. And I'm going to probably call the person who's open 24/7. So that's a huge benefit to outsourcing, maybe even just call answering or virtual secretary type thing. Also, ensure your calls are never missed. They have more than one receptionist working at a time. So if there's a huge time of day that you get a lot of calls, they can field all of them. And it's usually cheaper than hiring. Then some downfalls is that you have to train them very vigorously on your brand guidelines, and you must ensure that they're following all the rules of professional conduct. With call answering services, if they are legal specific, they usually have a general knowledge of the rules of professional conduct, but you still need to check in on it. If they are not legal specific, you're going to have to make like very defined demands regarding the rules of professional conduct, because there's a lot of things like sharing information, too much information shared with like confidentiality that you need to be aware of and be careful about, because they can ask the wrong question and then that kind of puts you in a sticky situation. And then it's a little harder to convey exceptions to rules. And what I mean by that is if you have like a set of qualifying questions, someone who works in your firm every day and kind of knows what works and what doesn't work may be able to say like, that's a gray area, but I think you should come in. Or, you know, like, oh, we have someone like that, we can help you. But they're not going to know that information. So if it's harder to convey those like areas that maybe aren't as black and white.
Jamie, can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
Do you have any names of outsourcing in that area that you can recommend?
Yes, so that's what I'm actually going to do right here.
Sorry, got ahead of you. Apologies.
That's okay. It's okay. So for tech and tools, and I call it tech tools, but really it's real people behind these technologies. Like you'll see that we have some suggestions. So Smith AI is a great call answering service that is specific to attorneys. So they are well versed in that legal sphere and understanding the rules of professional conduct. They actually like create, if you've visited their blog, it's amazing. And you'll see a lot of kind of considerations that only law firms have to deal with. Intaker is a newer platform. I find it a little bit more personable if you are like maybe in an area of like wills or like wills and trusts or something like that, where the person, instead of like a chat feature, it's a person coming on your screen and like talking to you in a video kind of chat way. And it's really cool. It's a new kind of technology that's starting to circulate around the legal industry. And I think they definitely have like the starting foot on that industry specific type of tool. And then Abby Connect, they're also attorney specific. They really pride themselves on qualification. That's like their bread and butter. They do a kind of lengthy interview process with the law firm to understand their brand, to understand every single thing that they can understand, to try to bridge that gap between like, I really need to hire somebody because they're the only one that's going to understand me. But Abby Connect really tries to push that bounds and say like, we can understand you, we just need to ask a lot of questions. But yeah, their virtual assistants is usually if you're just doing a general Google search for something like this, you'll look up virtual assistants. They can answer phone calls. They can field any questions that maybe happen when office hours are not even open. And you can kind of do a combination of these two things, right? Like you can hire an intake specialist from 9 to 5 and then only have Smith AI or Abby Connect answering questions after hours. And that's okay. Like it's just really up to you what you want to do. Even GNGF hires a virtual assistant. Like we do, like we're on the path to multi-million-dollar industry, right? And we still hire outsourcing intake specialists. So it's not really a thing for small firms. It's a thing for if it makes sense for you. But it allows you to kind of maintain that work-life balance. People are answering calls. You don't have to answer your phone at 9 p.m. during dinner. What? That's crazy. That's awesome. We love that. Let's sleep instead. That's great. we love things that take things like that off our plate. So allows potential new clients to have their needs immediately met. Like I said, some things are just, they need to talk to somebody now because otherwise they're not going to feel good about the problem that they have. And that's okay. Here's what these people will serve. And then it allows you to establish that Google Business Profile. Also, we can't talk about intake without talking about payment services. And I know some of you are going to look at me and say, Jamie, I don't get paid until the very end. Let's try to change that. And so some people, and first of all, some people do exchange money early, right? I used to work in a bankruptcy firm. We aren't doing any representation until we get paid by the nature of that business, right? So there are some exchanging of money that happens early. Some people don't even offer free consultations. So this kind of service can help with that too. But in the legal industry, and I think I bring this up again later, attorneys leave on an average of 12% of every case on the table they never get paid for. And that's proven in the CLE Legal Trends Report based on data. So that is a huge amount. And we want to bridge that gap as much as possible. And if we're making it easy for people to pay us in the beginning, in the end, whenever you get paid, that's going to help, I promise. Because some people just truly either forget or can't figure out the payment system or don't want to drive to your office. And if you put that online with reminders, easy, right? And there's a ton of different systems out there like LawPay. Clio just announced this year that they have a new payment system available. And then Gravity Legal. So a lot of attorneys work with Clio. So if you already have Clio, then it's at your disposal. Use it. Like, it's there. So you got it. But just don't leave money on the table. It's too easy. And these people will help you with it for not very much once you consider what you're losing on the table anyway, right? So intake professionals understand how CRM can make your intake process just easier. And Clio and other law firm focused CRMs have tools built out specifically, like the payment systems, like tracking your leads, specifically for the betterment of your intake process. You don't want to lose a client because your process lets them slip through the cracks, right? That would stink. Like, they're qualified. They're maybe even your ideal client, and you just didn't follow up with them in time. Like, that hurts. That's money on the table. They could have been great. It would have been an easy representation, but our intake process wasn't up to snuff. And that's just, we don't want to lose clients that way. And honestly, we don't want to like discourage people from seeking out legal help either, right? Like, if they're going to multiple law firms and they're having bad intake processes at each of the law firms, they're going to be discouraged from seeking legal help regardless of the problem that they have. So we don't want that. And as just a general policy, and our intake process are vital to getting them the representation that they need. So seek help from a legal professional if needed to improve your utilization of your CRM and consequently intake. So we talked about a little bit about consultations. One of the things after like qualification is whether or not we're going to sign them up for a consultation, right? That's the next step. So if we can dial those qualifications in specifically to only put most likely qualified clients in our conference rooms so that we can talk to them about the case that we are almost certain we are going to represent and hand them a contract at the end of that consultation, we need to do a couple of things and make a couple of decisions about the way we run our firm. One of those is fear-free, right? The typical lawyer answer that I'm going to give right now is, it kind of depends, right? There's not a right answer to this. Free increases volume, but it also decreases the quality a little bit. And unless you have that qualification process really dialed in, you're going to get some that you're not going to hand that contract to at the end, and it's going to be a waste of your time. Fee on the other hand, deters a lot of unqualified cases. They're not going to walk in the door with some frivolous lawsuit that they just don't like their ex-boyfriend. It's going to be probably people that are qualified to see you. They probably looked at your website, made sure that you at least represent that area of law. So it's going to be more seriously considered, and you're probably going to hand them a contract at the end, but it's definitely going to be lower volume. People will just see that it's a not free consult and they won't engage. Other considerations are working on contingency. Fee might be necessary, right? You're not getting paid until you either win the case. So if you need any upfront costs, especially if you're just starting out, you might want to at least buffer that with a little bit of a fee at the free consult. And then I don't want to say that this should dictate yes or no whether or not you have a fee or free consult, but it's something to consider. And it's whether or not your industry set a standard of whether or not the consults are free or fee. So if your highest competitors are all free, you're going to lose a lot more clients to them when making that consideration than you would if it's like a mixed bag, right? Like it's pretty regular that a lot of people in your industry have like a fee consult, then you're fine. You probably can do a fee consult. But I wouldn't say that that's 100% something that you need to consider, because it's really like if you're getting a ton of people in the door, maybe that's a way to stop like all the time you're spending vetting people, and we can take a breath, right? And only talk to good clients, and that's okay. But if you're struggling to get people in the door, this is something you can adjust to see if that helps getting people in the door. So we're coming up on the end of this session. I wanted to open it up for questions, if anyone has any.
If I could just real quick, you said, when you close the process of intake, you ask for the sale. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to think of some terminology that could be said that maybe be good for that, that ask. You've gone through the consultation. You say, I think you have a case here. I know that I have the qualifications to represent you in this. I've identified, the strategy that we'd use. What would be the ask? Would it be something like, I would really, or what would it be? We'd be appreciative if we could represent you, or how do you say it, but still be that professional, not genuflecting too much, still keeping your professional stature? Do you have a phrase or two for that
generally ask? So just as a little context, I actually did the intake at one of the firms that I was in. I was like the intake specialist. So when I was giving my spiel of so I did bankruptcy and personal injury. So I would give them all the list of the documents that we needed from them. I would say this is our fee. This is how we intend to represent you. These are the things you're going to have to kind of give to us or go through if it was workers' compensation in order to extend this representation. Does that sound like something you would be interested in? And do you want to move forward with this representation?
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's kind of a double thing. It's where it's like, hey, is there something we need to talk about that you're not okay or comfortable with? And then, oh, if we're all good, then why wouldn't you sign up?
I like it.
It's kind of putting the pressure on them a little bit too, in a way where it's like, don't go see other people. Like, this is a good contract. It's right in front of you. Right. We're going to help you. Yeah. So, and then great. It gives you an opportunity to kind of feel their doubts as well.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And then since this is sponsored by our lawyer referral service of the Omaha Bar Association, mm-hmm. I gotta throw out, if you don't practice in this area and you don't know that exact person out there, our lawyer referral service is always an easy way to say, call the Omaha Bar Association Lawyer Referral Service, and and they can refer you as well. So it's one of the options in the tool belt, along with everything else. So got to throw that in there. Plug for the lawyer referral service.
Yeah, and if you're looking on the internet for any like information about like different business practices or anything, like we have a YouTube series that we've talked to a lot of these different especially virtual assistants. Like I've talked to Abby, I've talked to Smith, I've talked to Intaker, I think is in the academy. I don't know if we've had a webinar with them yet, but all three of them, like if you're trying to vet them, if you can't decide between the two, maybe take a look at their webinars because they're going to have a lot of information. You're going to get real experiences with someone that works there. And then we've done the same thing with like Law Pay and all the payment system ones too. Yeah. And then again, this is all about that mindset shift. So if you're struggling with that, let me know. I can kind of direct you to certain episodes too. It's really, really good. It's actually one of the highest rated legal podcasts now. So it's really awesome. And then again, I left my contact information on this slide, so I'll leave this one up if you want. But if you have like specific questions that you're not wanting to ask in front of people, I understand. And I can answer those as well.
Well, and I'm fascinated by that idea of, so somebody is trying to reach out to your firm after hours and they're on your website, and sometimes there's a chat bot, sometimes there's a person who can do chat that's outsourced, with this idea that like they can be like, do you want a video chat right now?
Yep.
And have that be the level of intake, because that's got to have a higher conversion rate.
Yeah.
And horror rate of what you're seeing on the other side. If you can see them, I like the intake person, the after hours video, but yeah, that just, I like that idea.
So Intaker does it in a way too, where they qualify who they talk to with a video. Like it's like they have all their video questions pre-recorded.
Oh,
and
smart.
so and it's from the attorney, and then they entice a call, and then they'll talk to a receptionist.
Wow.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense.
So they're already interacting with the attorney before the attorney ever even knows they exist.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and even last night, at the after party, there were two attorneys talking about, there's this thing going around, this AI feature where you say, write a story, in Shakespearean language about cannibalism, and like, oh, it'll just like put it together. Like,
yeah. Apparently colleges are having a little bit of issue with that software right now because people don't even have to write their own papers anymore, and they're pretty good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, what do you do when that's the future? I don't know.
They said basically they're gonna have to have like only in-class essay writing.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, inspired on the spot to write things. I don't know. Yeah. I guess we do that for the bar exam, and for exams in law school, but yeah, I don't know. College, it was going to a coffee shop and stuff and writing for class, not just right there in class. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, should we get going with hour number 2?
I think so.
All right.
Let's do it. All righty. And can you see what my screen? Cool. Okay. Sorry, bring you down here. There we go. Okay. So the second topic we're going to talk about is legal CRMs in a client-centered law firm. So specifically, client-centered is what I mean by that is maybe we're not working so much with businesses on a daily basis, but actual like people are coming into our office with problems. And then I don't have to do all my intro stuff. I had it in there just in case, but yeah. So what is a legal CRM? I've worked in tech now for a couple years, so I'm used to all this letter stuff. Tech does not like to use full words for whatever reason, but CRM stands for Client Relationship Management. And you'll always see me say legal CRM or legal client relationship management. because I think that there are benefits, and I'll talk about those later, to legal specific ones when you're a law firm running a business. But CRM helps law firms manage business development functions such as client intake, client scheduling, and follow-up, revenue tracking, and really, I mean, kind of the sky's the limit with these companies because they just keep adding features that you didn't even know that they could add, and they're growing rapidly. So it serves as a centralized location, which is important for CRMs because with the spreadsheets and the other tools that I was talking about previously, you're likely going to end up with 10 spreadsheets in your Google Sheets folder, all related to running your business. And this kind of just puts it in one spot for you in an organized way. So in short, legal CRM is software that addresses all the client intake process that we just discussed and helps you turn leads into clients and turn clients into retained clients or repeating customers. And do you have to be tech savvy to use CRMs? No, absolutely not. They have CRMs out there that are super customizable, that if you are really into tech and you want to make this your own thing, you can go and buy like a basic package and build it the way you want. But there's a lot of CRMs out there that are built to be user friendly. They're built for the person who doesn't have a technical background. So you're capable of using CRMs regardless of your technological background. And if you, like I said before in the previous conversation, we can start with Google Sheets. If you're not ready to take on the price of CRMs, Google Sheets are a viable option. Again, you can buy, like you could with the intake process, you can buy Google Sheets related to revenue, related to the other aspects of like CRM capabilities. And they'll be set up kind of like this, where you'll input the information related to the client, but it's not it's customizable because you can do what you want with your own Google Sheet, but it's going to be not limitless, right? Like you're gonna hit a wall regarding what CRMs can do for you that are built softwares that Google Sheets cannot. But again, if you're starting out and you can't afford that CRM, that's fine, and you'll be able to like input this data easily into a CRM when you are able to afford one. But there are also legal specific CRM options, right? So we use Salesforce. Salesforce is not a legal specific CRM. We use it because we're not a law firm, A, and because we do have a tech team. We are a tech company, and we are able to customize Salesforce to do what we want it to do and what we need it to do. These have a level of customization, but they're built for attorneys running law firms, and all the specific intricacies of a law firm exist in these things. So some of these, and I recommend companies, like I'm going to show you a bunch of companies here, but like it's not because we're friends with them or anything. Like you'll see these names on every single list you look up. So it's public information. They are available for you. You're going to love these. And I just wanted to kind of touch on some of these and give you some options. But benefits of using a legal CRM are just immeasurable. And well, I guess they're not immeasurable. Clea measured it, but it's insane. So growing firms are 46% more likely to use client intake and CRM solutions. So what that means is that if you use CRM and intake, you are likely to grow on average. If you don't use them, you are likely to shrink your firm. That is huge, right? Like we're not talking about staying stagnant. It's saying it's making a difference. Like those people who are growing are taking the clients right out of the shrinking firms, like pool, right? So it's huge. It makes a difference, and efficiency really impacts that. And here's the graph from the CLE Legal Trends report showing that it is measurable. So I was completely wrong, but it is. You'll see the difference between the growing firms and the shrinking firms and the rate of intake in CRM adoption. But it also has so many like spelled out benefits too, right? It has all these different things, and I'm going to touch on quite a few of these a little bit more in depth. So first is integrated intake. We just spent a whole session on intake and the importance of intake. And I talked about how marketing efforts are not worth it if your intake stinks. It's just not. And so use a service / spreadsheet. I'm not going to say that you can't accomplish this with a spreadsheet and not a service, but use one of those things so you can track your leads, track qualifying versus not qualifying, track conversion rates. So leads to appointments. Remember that it's not just leads to conversion. It's all those three things. And who followed up, how many times, and referral versus new. But it can also help increase your client relationships. And you're like, yeah, of course, like intake is all about client relationships, right? But not only does it like encourage intake, it makes it easy to keep them posted when you're representing them. It encourages communication by allowing you to templatize a lot of your intake process and send out emails faster and more efficiently and regularly to all the people who may be considering hiring you as an attorney. And then it also sets expectations based on realized data, right? So I'm not going to promise your case is going to be done in 6 months easy. We'll have a settlement, no problem. When every other case just like theirs has settled in no less than 9 months. And it's for half the value of what I'm telling them, right? And then they're going to be not happy at 6 months when they don't have a settlement, right? So we're looking at this information that we have about our clients that's stored in one place. And we're saying, actually, I want to set a realistic expectation with my clients so that they're happier in the end. And I can tell them exactly when I should expect for their case to wrap up, regardless of the type of case that it is, you know? So it's awesome to have that information and be able to have real conversations with clients and not just things that we think could be true and they just don't end up happening. So it also allows you to have an optimized sales process. Remember, attorneys are salespeople. So law firm owners equals business owners equals salesperson. You can increase your potential for lead generation through CRM processes. It allows you to send out or create lists of different contacts based on like I was talking about the gates and the lead magnets, where you have something on your website that they filled out a form to access. All the form fills, all the contact information that you've collected from that form, then go into a list on your CRM platform, and then you designate that list to feed a set of emails to try to re-engage until they pick up that phone and call you, or they fill out a form saying, hey, I want a consult, right? So there's ways to kind of continue to engage in a sales type way with people who haven't decided to hire you yet. And it also allows for educated follow-up on potential clients. And what I mean by that is every time you send them an email through your CRM, every time you send them a phone call and you're logging that in your CRM, every time they access your website and you're connecting your Google Analytics to your CRM, those things will show up when you search their name, and you can have a conversation. I see you have seen X, Y, and Z. I see you attended X, Y, and Z. We would love to talk more about that. And is that related to the need that you have, or is that related to the representation that you're seeking? And it's a great way to feel like they're listened to, that they were recognized at those attendances, like that, yeah, I did attend that seminar on how to start a business and you're trying to help me start a business. That's great, you know? So it's amazing to kind of feel like it's a personable interaction. And then another thing that can be improved is staff efficiency. So if we're worried about one of the issues with, I think, that the pandemic brought is the work from home issue, where people are maybe not working as much as they say they're working because they're working from home. You will be able to track that through your CRM. You can have people bill their time, whether or not they're billable attorneys or not, or track their time through the CRM, and you'll be able to say what your utilization rate is. So like, when utilization is the number of billable hours worked divided by the number of hours in an 8-hour day. So are they doing things that are actively contributing to what is being paid by the client, right? And how much of that time is non-billable? So we are able to see that directly in our CRM as like a report. So it's going to show you what employees are maybe not working as hard as they say they are, or maybe even indicating new training that's you might need to instill in some of your employees. Like if one person's struggling really hard with one aspect, but the other aspects are pretty strong, like maybe training is necessary to get that part of the employment up to snuff. So it's going to have some key indicators, even just how you can improve the employment at your firm. Also allows employees to work remote, right? A lot of the things that they do on a daily basis will live in their CRM and their practice management. They can templatize motions. They can templatize emails that they send to clients. They can literally do anything that doesn't absolutely have to be in office for. They can do initial consults on Zoom and track all that information in the CRM, and you can be at your house and see all the information related to that client instantly. That's awesome. And they don't have to walk in your desk and annoy you 6 times during a phone call. Like, it's amazing. So, and then another thing, like I mentioned briefly, it's document storage and templates. Any document that you would normally print out and put in a paper file and have to rummage through later and find, you can store under the name of the client in the profile. You'll be able to create templates related to all these different motions, and easily edit them within the CRM, so you can customize them from there. And it's just honestly an added benefit to that is it's a more sustainable option, right? We're not constantly using ink and printing things out. It's just better all around. And then we've seen this graph before, but I'm using it for a different reason now. It's a personalized communication tool as well. We learned that clients want to be able to communicate with you the way they want to communicate with you, and they expect you to be there. And this graph is evidence of that. So CRMs allow you to provide all of these different things, all of these ways of communication, and store the information from these ways of communication in one place. So if you're tracking your phone calls and you're logging them in your CRM, if you're discussing through email, or if you have a client who likes to bounce between all of these things, but you've tracked them all in your CRM, you can follow that conversation a lot easier than you can if you never wrote, or you're looking for a post-it note from the phone call, they follow it up with an email, and then you're talking to them in video conference and didn't write anything down, you were in your car or something. Like, that's a mess. But the CRM allows it to be all in one spot. So data analytics is another key thing. We have all this information. We've talked about leads. We've talked about revenue. We've talked about all the different types of conversions that we can have. This is going to put it in a way that makes sense, and it's going to show us the data that we should be relying on to make different business decisions going forward. So we'll know what works and what doesn't work. We'll allow you to try different methods and pivot when things aren't really panning out, and you'll make business decisions based on data rather than gut instinct, right? So we're not hiring when we really don't have the revenue to hire. We're outsourcing when we're maybe not ready to hire, but this part of our business is taking way too much time from us. So we're outsourcing, and now we know it because, oh my gosh, the data says I couldn't bill for 4 hours this week because I was on the phone calling people that weren't going to end up being clients. That stinks. I'm outsourcing that. Template opportunities, that's going to save us time. And it's also, you're going to see like, wow, they're spending a ton of time writing like complaints just by like doing the template of them, like not even putting in the actual details. Let's templatize that document, and then all we have to do is put in the details. That's going to save us so much time. So many things that's going to increase efficiency overall, and we're going to learn from the data on our CRM. So why is it beneficial to use a legal CRM, right? You're going to have familiarity with the rules of professional conduct. A lot of these CRM tools that are legal specific really go the extra mile in terms of security. They allow for screening, a lot of them. I know CLE just released a feature that like if you want to screen one attorney from a case because they're conflicted out from another job in the past or something, then you're capable of doing that. They also allow for document retention to the point that is necessary for certain areas of law or even all law together, right? Like we know we have to keep our documents, and they're not going to just delete things willy-nilly. They're familiar with the document retention policies. They're also familiar with confidentiality, even though people that work within your firm are allowed to have the access to a lot of the information about clients. They're making sure it's not getting out, it's not public to anybody. And then it's also customized to attorney workflow, right? A lot of these CRMs know that trial is going to be an aspect of litigation. And it's not like they're not selling that to accountants because they're never going to go to trial. So they are like discovery or negotiation processes. So they're integrating those into the systems to make it make sense for a law firm specifically. So how can we measure the full life cycle of a client? Through CRMs. And so I just want to start with the lifetime value of a client is the total dollar value of a customer throughout the entire duration of the relationship with the company. Okay. And I know when I start to speak numbers, attorneys glaze over. Like, it's okay. We'll get through this. It's not that hard. I promise. It's not too bad. But the total dollar value of a customer throughout the entire duration of the relationship with the company. So you think, okay, yeah, right? We have a client, they have expenses. Lifetime value of a client. No, incorrect. So we have a client, they do have expenses. We also have the salaries of employees that have worked on them, right? Or even hourly of employees that are working on them. We also have how much did we spend on marketing that was necessary to get them into the door. We also have our intake. We also have the outsource, right? So it's the average cost of all those things that have an effect on how many clients that we get built into what is ultimately their profit, in each client's profit. So this is if you're trying to go through the steps and kind of understand the different components, we're going to first forecast the average customer lifetime. And how are we going to do that? Using our CRM. We're going to build some time under us using our CRM, log everything, and it's going to help you kind of realize what your average customer lifetime is. It might be 2 years, right? It might be 6 months, depending on whether or not you go to trial, or it might be 7 years if you're in bankruptcy. Like, it just depends. So, and then you're going to forecast the total future revenues based on the average number of purchase and price per purchase. This is going to be really, really difficult if you bill hourly. Okay. It's going to vary a lot more, but once you have a lot more logging, like cases logged in your system, you'll be able to find an average and usually go with the average, and the outliers will kind of balance themselves out. And then estimate the average cost of delivering products or services, including marketing and advertising, to acquire customers. So it costs to acquire and costs to service them, right? We cannot forget about both of those things. And then you'll be able to calculate the net present value of that future, a total future amount, right? So after you have all of this data that you've acquired over time, this is not going to happen tomorrow, especially if you've not consistently used your CRM or you're just now getting a CRM. You're going to have to acquire data based on who you work with. And then you'll slowly come up with these averages, and then you'll start to get your lifetime value of a client based on those averages. So just kind of as an example, I wanted to include this kind of because it always helps me conceptualize, I think, if you have an example. So one client pays the firm $50,000 for legal work over 10 years, okay? A similar client that pays the firm $50,000 over 2 years. The total value earned from both clients is the same, right? But the second client is actually more valuable to the firm because it was money earned that was realized earlier to the firm. So that kind of helps you conceptualize like, oh, that's what lifetime value of a client means. Like it's including costs, it's considering time spent. It's an overall evaluation of the success of the client. And the CRM will help you understand that and learn that and make adjustments based on that number. So why is CLTV useful to law firms specifically? So if you have positive cash flow, right? You've probably got a healthy business. That's usually how it works. So your total income from a single customer is greater than your expenses paid on average when you deliver goods. You're going to have that positive cash flow, and it's going to kind of build your trajectory in the right way. We want to continue to increase that gap. So what are pros and cons of legal CRMs? I wanted to dig into some specifics, but I also went a little general at first, so just bear with me. So I have the CRM checklist. I would screenshot this because if you are like looking to purchase a CRM, I would make sure that these exist, right? Like you're gonna want these different tools available to you in your CRM. And if not, but like say it's a cheaper option and it's got most of them, you might be able to just buy a separate smaller tool to supplement that one tool that it's missing, right? So you just want to make sure you have these tools at your disposal. I recommend legal specific, but if not, beware of the ethical issues and you can kind of supplement that way. You can have contact management. Like I said before, that's where you can build your lists of contacts. Client interaction tracking, where it allows you to log your phone calls, log your emails, database management, marketing and campaign management. Those two kind of work together in the sense that it's going to allow you to make purposeful efforts to appeal to clients, right? So it's going to say, I do this all the time. So it's going to say like, oh, I created this social media post to get new clients. I set it up as a marketing campaign and I'm tracking the success of that campaign. Or I went out and did this event or maybe even was a parade and I just want to see how many calls I get after that parade and who saw me at that parade. Log it as a marketing campaign, see what the success is. Like those are real things that we can track the success of. And maybe it's not worth it next year to pay $500 to be at an event. It's not. That's a real thing. And it stinks because we had a really fun time at that event, right? And maybe you just want to do it anyway. That's okay too. And then there's lead management. There's sales automation, workflow automation, business intelligence reporting, knowledge management, mobile support, deployment environment, security, and customer service. So all of these things just make for a really good CRM, like well-rounded, a lot of capabilities. And you'll find that having these is going to be a lot easier on you than missing one of the components. They all kind of work together. So for the first CRM specifically that I want to talk about is Clio. They are kind of the leading CRM, or actually they're the leading practice management program out there, and they've built a CRM. So if you're going to look up Clio, you're going to come into contact with a lot of their practice management system stuff, But what we're looking at specifically is Clio Grow. Clio Grow is their CRM. It's what's gonna give you the data. It's gonna be the ability to build those lists, and it's gonna help you integrate that easily and convert leads into actual clients and build that into your practice management system. That's kind of their whole thing, is they want everything to be hosted on Clio so that it all works together and all you have to do is have Clio. But there's benefits, there's costs and benefits to that, obviously. So they do have client management. They automate your most important tasks, and they have contact organization. And that integrates well both on the practice management side and the Clio Grow side. They also have intake organization, right? We talked about intake and how important that is. So they build that whole process into Clio so that when you get a phone call, you pull up your new Clio like template, and you're filling out all this information about them, and you log it, and now they have a contact in your Clio system, and you can start logging every interaction you have with that person. So you have that information on them from the jump. And then its intake is customizable, so you can build those qualification questions in there specifically, and you can have lead and revenue tracking based on either contacts or overall throughout the firm. And then also it allows for automated document generation and secure cloud collaboration. And what that means is that it has the templatized emails and stuff that you can send during the lead nurturing process. It also allows for other employees to work from remote locations, like I was talking about before, where they'll be able to collaborate with the attorney at one time and get some information to a potential lead or someone who's in the intake process. So Clio does have some pros and cons. And I want to preface this part with, these are not my thoughts as somebody who is in tech and not working with this every day. This is based on real reviews and real clients and real users of Clio. And I've done that with every system that I have named today. So this is not my words, but I pulled the things that were coming up a lot. So pros, they're made for attorneys. They're built in scheduling. So they have abilities to connect your Calendly or connect your Google Calendar to where you can actually schedule appointments directly to the person's calendar. You can give capabilities to people who are reaching out for initial consults. We have discussions about that part of it every single day at our office, because there's definitely benefits to having people who are reaching out to you have direct access to your calendar and can schedule with you. But it does start to bring in, because you're not qualifying them at that point, right? You're talking to somebody who literally might have nothing that your firm represents on a regular basis. So, but you're casting a wide net, and if you're just starting out, that's maybe where you want to start. I don't know, but built-in scheduling can be, yeah, go for it.
Jamie, so what you're talking about there is when on your website it says schedule an appointment, and you have open times on calendar that you've already said I can do my appointment here, and they can just set it, and then you show up the next day, and on your calendar is meeting with Jamie at 3 o'clock, and it's confirmed, and you're not doing anything.
Yep.
To set that up, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And Calendly, you and I have connected using Calendly as a system, but it's sort of even taking out a person in that process and just saying, these are kind of my open hours, and if they want to, they can schedule it right there.
Yeah. So the good thing about Calendly is it is really smart. So you can say to Calendly, like, hey, if you're going to offer them your calendar straight from your website, you can say, hey, I don't want them to schedule anywhere within the next 2 weeks of when they're accessing my calendar, so that gives you the buffer that you need to like get the information, maybe even reach out through phone call to like pre-qualify them. And that's what I would suggest, is if you're going to give them access to your calendar directly, to give that buffer and then have them have to fill in their phone number. You can make that required, and then you call them, qualify them, and if they're not qualified, then you cancel that appointment.
Super smart. Yeah.
That's kind of like the happy medium for people who really want that like ease of use available. But I would recommend that, I think. Yeah. So, but we talk about it all the time here. Like it's a constant debate because it can be beneficial for some people. And then so another benefit is easy automations. So like tasks, emails, workflows, they can all be kicked off by each other. So like say, when you close a case that you have to do X, Y, and Z. So you press one button and those tasks automatically get generated. That's so much easier for you than having to recreate that every time, or like even set off a template. Like you're literally just saying, I completed that, give me the next portion. And that's awesome. So they also have great customer service according to these reviews. And they have form features and integrated with a variety of different tech tools. When you go to CleoCon, which I was there not too long ago, it's their convention that they have every year. They have all of these different, like in their expo room, they have all these different tables. And if you are an integrated Clio tech tool, it will have like a star by it that says like integrates with Clio. And it's because they pride themselves on how many different tech tools are completely fully integrated with Clio. And it's like without Zapier, right? Like for those of you who don't know, Zapier is a tool that you can use to kind of connect two things that don't naturally connect to each other. And it just makes things a little bit easier. But Clio kind of bypasses Zapier and says, we're just going to connect with everybody ourselves. So it's really awesome. And then, so cons of Clio, it is a time-consuming setup. You have to really be committed to filling out all the aspects. You have to change your process. If you haven't used a Clio before you have a Clio, you have to change your business processes to commit, right? You have to put everything in Clio. You have to really log everything, time, calls, everything. Put it in Clio, and you're going to get the most out of Clio in about a year, because you're going to have all the data, you're going to have all your information, but you got to be committed. You got to just bite the bullet and realize it's going to be sticky for a while. And then they're also apparently one of the issues that they have is they're not responsive to feature requests. They're big now, like they're considered the unicorn of tech. So they're the first ones, I think, to hit, I want to say $1 billion, but maybe it's not $1 billion in revenue, and just being a legal specific tech company. So they're crazy, but apparently when you get that big, it's hard to take suggestions from every single person. And I'm sure that's what that is, growing pains. And then it also can be expensive. So if you're starting out and you're just now getting like some revenue where you think you can spend on a good CRM solution, they might not be your first step. But it is nice. They're expensive, but they're also, when you pay for the CRM, you're also probably going to pay for the practice management, and it's going to clear a lot of time for you. And then it's not as customizable because they do have everything integrated for you. So you're using the stuff that's already integrated with their system. And then Lawmatics. So Lawmatics is a really, really good CRM platform. And what a lot of people do that I don't think Clio really likes is a lot of people have practice management with Clio and then use Lawmatics for their CRM because it's just really good. Clio was probably I know they were practice management first, and then they developed their CRM recently. So they're still kind of building that out. Whereas Lawmatics was a CRM first platform. But you can kind of see how their workflow works. You start with a new lead, you schedule the consult. It allows you to mark all your points of contact with them. This is for each contact too. So you'll see kind of the life cycle until your intent to hire, which would probably be at your initial consult, or you'd probably mark it after your initial consult. And then here you can see another viewpoint of kind of a timeline of interaction with a client, so that not only are you seeing what stage they're in, you're actually seeing how long it's been since you last reached out to them, because like we said before, acting fast is important. So if they reached out to you 8 months ago for representation and we're just now getting back to them, are they likely a hot lead anymore? Probably not, right? If they've wanted legal representation for a matter that is more time sensitive, they probably wanted you to call back within at least a month. So it's something to be aware of, and you're able to see that very easily through their system. Also, Lawmatics, like almost every other CRM, this is pretty basic. If they don't have forms, that's usually not a good sign. But you're able to build your own forms. They're customizable. I will give you a little tip on what we tell our clients that your form should require. I know everyone hates forms that require things when you're the one filling them out, but if you want it to be useful information for marketing and for follow-up, you want their name first and last. You want their phone number at a minimum, and then preferably an email address. So if you can require those 4 things, that's going to be way more helpful. I'm a little bit on the fence. We also have discussions about this, about like having a text box there for them to fill out. I think it's more beneficial to have someone from your firm call and kind of stop them when they're giving too much information, because we know that that line can be crossed pretty easily, and people love to just tell attorneys all their problems, even if they don't relate to the representation. So if you do require have that box to let them kind of give more information about their case, I say limit the characters to like 150. Make it short, like 1 sentence about what you need help with. So that's a little tip. And then Lawmatics had this on their website. I just thought it was awesome. So stop running your firm from your email inbox. It's not effective in any way. You don't want to be searching for every email you've ever received from anybody. You should be using your email to conduct business, not catch up with leads and see what leads are on your plate. Like the communications between me and Dave to set up this is an email communication. He's not trying to sign up for GNGF, right? So that's fine. But we are not, but I'm also not using my email to talk to attorneys to try to get them to come to GNGF and be clients, because that doesn't make sense. So Lawmatics pros and cons, again, it's not me, it's the reviews. So they're made for attorneys. They're built in scheduling, again. So they have easy automations. That's the number one thing I saw that people loved about Lawmatics, is they're so customizable. You can use pretty much any tech tool and set it up in a way that automates with Lawmatics, integrates with Lawmatics. So it's really cool. People love that aspect about it. And then also, again, it has the automations where you click a button and it sets off that task list for the next phase, regardless of where you're at. Even if you're transitioning from lead to client to intake, or client to settlement, wherever you are, they can automate. They have an intuitive layout, apparently, which I kind of saw that when I was going through their features. I just think that it's easy to tell when things are happening chronologically, when things are happening in like the phases. And then they also have form features that are customizable and responsive to feature requests. So unlike Clio, they actually seem to have like a pretty clear indication of listening to the customers and what they want. Cons, their appointment feature is in development. So they, I think, integrate with Calendly and a couple other things to help kind of supplement this, but they're trying to build that out on their own. And then they're also not natively integrated with payment, which is rough. But like I said before, if you have Lawmatics, that's not your practice management, right? So once they become a client, you're probably going to use some other system to kind of send them through the client life cycle. So as long as you have that practice management set, they're likely in that phase where they're converting from the CRM to the project management. So if their project management system has the payment system, that's not necessary for those two things to work together. You're likely not charging leads for anything. You're going to start charging them once they sign that contract. And then they don't have an app, and they're not very mobile friendly. So you're going to have to be at your desktop or your laptop for this to really work. CasePeer. This one I wanted to talk about because it is so different. CasePeer is personal injury only. So if you are a personal injury firm, this is built out specifically for personal injuries. So the same benefit that comes from like using a legal CRM, because they're familiar with the legal process, they're better than CRMs that aren't familiar with the legal process. This is kind of the same concept, but even more specific. So CasePeer is really great if you're a personal injury attorney, but if you do anything else in conjunction with personal injury, you're not going to want two CRMs. So it's a kind of a double-edged sword because it is so good for personal injury attorneys. But it has things like tracking your different like insurance. You can track insurance through the cases and everything. You can see that from here. You can see like they also have the timelines where like the different communications are shown in a sequential order. Yeah, and it has like the date of loss. It's very, very specific to personal injury. And then again, the management tools, where it filters by client, but it also can filter by all of these other things. Even priority, which I think is pretty cool. Like you can set a priority. So CasePeer, again, made for personal injury attorneys. It's consistently upgrading its existing features. Like everyone talks about how like as soon as they don't like something, before they even say it, it's updated. So easy to use. It has a great calendar system. I think it's primarily because personal injury is so like hearing driven and date driven. So their calendar system's really good with integrating into that. And then they're good at tracking and medical billing. But they can be expensive. They're minor features, or they have like minor features that are bugs, and then they're not very customizable from the back end. They have the thought, which is probably true, that they've built this so custom or so for personal injury attorneys. You know, like everything is built because of a personal injury attorney, that they're like, it doesn't need to be customized. This is how personal injury attorneys should work. So there's definitely some give and take there. So my thing with them, and I'm going to be quite frank, is like, if you do anything to supplement your personal injury practice, right? Like a lot of attorneys, I feel like, do personal injury and something else, then you're not going to want two separate, like you're not going to want CasePeer and Clio. That's just expensive. And Clio would be fine for both, or Lawmatics would be fine for both. So it's really hard to kind of come over that hill. But if you really are putting all your eggs in personal injury, I think this is a really good solution. Discovery process could use improvement, and then only for personal injury attorneys. So lead docket is one that I originally didn't have on here. And then my boss said to put it on here. And something to know about me and my boss. So Mark has done speaking events all over. He loves Omaha Bar. He actually made the connect with me and Dave. So I worked in firms and I worked in personal injury firms. He's gone from the opposite perspective, right? So he sees everything from the tech tool perspective, and he sees lead docket as like a really good tech tool. The other side for me is it doesn't have as much buzz. So I haven't heard a lot of attorneys actually using it. Our clients, I think maybe 2 use it. So it's not very popular, but I was looking at its features. It does like stand up to the others. I think just Clio and Lawmatics have had more buzz recently in the community. So I did include it because I do think that its features are really good, and Mark likes it from a technical standpoint. So it does have notifications, which I find actually really helpful. It says when you got a new lead, when you should be keeping or following up. It has a lot of reminders for you instead of just for them. Like a lot of the other CRMs, you set the reminders ahead of time for your clients. So it follows up after a certain cadence. Whereas this is telling you, hey, you haven't followed up with this client and you haven't set a cadence. Maybe you should do that. And that's kind of nice. I do like that. And then it also has really nice visuals if you're like a visual learner or in terms of metrics. So you'll see all your revenue, all the lead information displayed to you in graphs and like easy to read like graphics as here. I think Lawmatics does that and Clio's getting there. They've definitely done a lot more in the past year on Clio than the previous years. And then again, they have customizable forms, which we know how to build those out now. So that's good. So lead docket is made easy for attorneys. It integrates with CallRail. If you don't know what CallRail is, I highly recommend checking that out. It is something you can use in conjunction with your virtual assistant. Basically what it allows you to do is keep data specifically for calls. So you can actually set up separate phone numbers that all lead back to your phone number so you can track where like certain things come from. It's nice. We use it here. And then we also use Dialpad if anyone has that. But customizable messages and templates, in-depth reporting, text, email, and workflows. The cons is it's not easily customizable again. Tasks are difficult to change, which I think that comes from like the integration between the CRM process and the practice management process, because they do also have a practice management. And then they're not easily filtered. The contacts are not, and then they're used in conjunction with FileVine. So FileVine is something you would use when you're converting the client from intake into practice management. And in order for it to continue as a practice management system that actually is effective, you would use it in conjunction with FileVine. And people don't prefer that because it's basically, so Clio Grow is the CRM, Clio is the practice management. It would say lead docket is the CRM, lead docket plus FileVine is the practice management here. So it's just one extra step. Are there any questions?
We use something kind of adjacent to a CRM for the Omaha Bar Association, and I I just pulled this out. I took the Clifton Strengths Finder, and input is my number 4 strength. I'm a data hoarder, like at heart, right? And I want to know how many emails I've sent. I want to know their open rates. I want to know their click-through rate on any thing that I had in there for linked out. All that information is really helpful to me. I'm not engaging with them in my emails. Yeah. So what do I need to do? I need to try something else. I send them a letter. I send them a thank you note for whatever they've done. We have text messaging, all these different things, but I can look at an individual potential member or actual member, see where those interactions are and see where there's room. What I don't have, because ours is not that good, I don't have the automated systems necessarily in place, other than like scheduling out emails, but not like for these type of people. But I mean, this is the thing. You have somebody that's a potential client or a great client and you haven't followed up with them and they just fall off. Like, that the potential is just lost because you forgot about them, but the system helps you not forget.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of attorneys, and probably including myself before I was more familiar into tech, it is scary to have to deal with integrations. So if you're somebody who likes to do a lot of the tech and likes to customize, you're going to have an entirely different perspective on what you think is a good CRM system versus someone who wants it to serve their needs but doesn't want to have to do a lot of upfront work, then they're going to have a different idea, right? So I think like Lawmatics and Clio is kind of like the duality between those two systems. Lawmatics, if you're someone who really likes to customize, or if you want it to fit your specific purpose and you're willing to put in that work, Lawmatics is fantastic. If in terms of Clio is really user friendly. It's going to integrate with your practice management really easily. You're just not going to be able to change it. It's Clio is Clio, you know, like, so, and I think that the lead docket's more similar to Clio, and then the case peer is Clio, but for personal injury attorneys. So,
and I can say that I know for a fact that there are firms with one attorney, there are firms with 5 attorneys, 15 attorneys, and obviously 50 and above, they all have something like this. But every level in town here in Omaha, there are firms that have this. It exists for all sizes, and I've seen it, and I've seen these in different ways, and I've seen those different levels that they want to go into it. There's some notorious attorneys out there that you just know, talking to them, they have this system, they love it, they talk about it all the time. There's other ones that they use it because they don't want to dive in as much, they just want it to be turnkey for them. So I'm glad there's all those different options, and thank you for going through them.
So the thing with that too, I want to mention is that you were saying that it's like small firms and big firms, like they all use these systems, and that's because they really like offset their own cost through efficiency and through like lead management, right? Like they're getting either more people in the door, or they're making the attorney's time spent on that aspect of the business less, so much so that the payment that they're putting towards these systems is basically like negative. Like they are actually making more money because this is taking care of so much for them. And I think that solos, like I can't say if you have no money to go out and spend it on this, but if you can justify it if you're spending any money anywhere, right? Like, so it's going to make you more money in the long run.
Yeah. And the one big picture thing that right now in Omaha and across the country, there's a huge shift in baby boomers retiring. And so that world of connections and world of referrals is going away. And so there's a large market shift, and who's going to take over that market. And so, the opportunity to be the up and coming in a specific field is greater than it's been in a generation. And so is now the time to invest in things like this? Yeah, because at some point it'll solidify up, but I think right now it's very dynamic and in the changing market shares out there in all the areas.
So at GNGF and with our clients, we say that everyone who comes to us who is kind of an old school attorney, where they're like, yeah, but I get a ton of referrals from my friend down the street. And we're like, okay, in today's world, people are barely leaving their house. They're not taking only advice anymore from just one person. They're looking at reviews. They're going to your Google Business Profile. And we've actually deemed in our business, Google Business Profile is a referral, right?
Yeah.
Like basically they're referring you because you're showing up so high on your search results, even if it's just like practice attorney or personal injury attorney. And then in Cincinnati or in Omaha, and you show up on their map pack, that's a referral, right? Because you were so good in their eyes that you deserve to be the attorney that they suggest. And so you have to start doing that and diversifying where your referrals are coming from. And that's going to end up increasing the amount of clients that you have, or even the more qualified clients you have, depending on what search results you're showing up for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you cast a wider net, but then you need to have the better intake to keep the quality up and everything like that. So
we're always improving our intake after today. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Any questions before we wrap this up? I appreciate everybody on here now, and I appreciate everybody who watches on demand. I'll have your contact information for anybody that wants to follow up that's watching this after today. And
that link at
yeah.
the bottom of the presentation, it will be live as long as this video is live. So
awesome.
You're good. Yeah.
Awesome. That's great. Well, it is 31 minutes after the hour. We are 4 minutes early on finishing up.
Is that okay? Do you want me to go for 4 more
no,
minutes?
No. I like to beat expectations. So we'll leave it there. We certainly got 2 hours worth of information and education. So thank you so much for your time, Jamie. Thank you for people watching. And hopefully we'll see GNGF, you or somebody else from the office here in the next year.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.